This picture shows a king and his court, as it was in ancient times when the king had absolute power. Nowadays in Great Britain we do have a head, a king or a queen. At the moment there's a queen, but her power is held by the government, the Prime Minister. But here the king sits on his throne in his kingly state. That means he's dressed up as a king. He doesn't always do this, but when he's acting as king he dresses in this way, with his stately habit. That means his royal robes, his royal cloak and his crown or diadem, and in his hand he carries a scepter. And in England the queen or king also carries an orb, which is a symbol of the world which the king rules over. And around the king are the courtiers. These are the people who serve the king, and the chief among these are the Chancellor. That's him here, who gives the king his main advice, and the various councillors and secretaries. Nowadays the ministers of the government are the secretaries of state. So the different ministers, the main ministers, for example the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who's in charge of the finances, is a minister of state. In ancient times the king used to appoint these people directly. Nowadays we elect them and the Prime Minister appoints them using his royal prerogative. In other words, he's acting in place of the king, so he's behaving as though he were the king, using the king's power. And so we have the Lord Marshal, 7, who's head of the armed forces or the army, the Controller here, the Cupbearer, who's here, who carries is an honorary position, carrying the king's cup, the Taster, who makes sure the king doesn't get poisoned, and the Treasurer, who looks after the king's money, here, and the High Chamberlain, here, and the Master of the Horse, who's in charge of the cavalry. In ancient times this was very important. Then underneath these you have various courtiers, ministers that do different jobs, and here they are here, and pages that serve the king and do different little things around the place. Like when the king's walking, they would hold his cloak above the ground. And lackeys, who are servants. And we have a guard, of course, very important. Here he is with his he's got a spear, this one, or a pike. He gives audience to ambassadors from foreign princes. Here's an ambassador coming to present his credentials. He's got a letter from his king, bringing it to this king. And the queen, one of her jobs is still to receive ambassadors, and they come to the court. And they're called the ambassadors of the court of St. James in England. And foreign kings also send vice-regents, who are kings, deputy kings really. They don't actually act as kings, but they're carrying out some of the jobs of the king. Deputies, people who are given powers to do certain things using the king's power. Governors of foreign countries, treasurers, ambassadors. Ambassadors go from the king to other countries and they represent or stand for the king and his court. And also in a court you used to have a fool who used to keep people entertained and do silly things to make people laugh.